Hey everybody, I just wanted to shoot a quick handheld video, which I know is not what I do, and let you know that I just figured something out that may be of interest to some other retro hi-fi people. As you're probably aware, this is my show deck, my Pioneer CT-F900 that I use on the channel, and this developed a problem where I was getting some popping. You'd hear a little pop mostly in the left channel, and you'd see the left meter jump.
Their children show how unreliable such myths are.
And I think I fixed it, and I want to show you a little bit about that. First, let's go inside. This is a ridiculous deck, typical of late 70s Pioneer excess and self-indulgence. This deck is ridiculous. I do not like working on these things. This is my second one, and the first one no longer exists because I worked on it. I don't ever want to work on one of these again, and I have been in a high-stress mode most of the evening, just taking the cover off of this thing. So, this is actually a pretty simple thing. I figured this out, and I'm going to show you. There's a gentleman on YouTube called Moggy's Hi-Fi Antics, and he did a full service of a Pioneer CT-F900, which is almost the exact same deck. Moggy found the exact same problem with the 950 that he was working on, and I will show you why it is a problem. We'll go back to his video here. This is the drive mechanism of the 900 and the 950 with the front panel removed. So here are your spindles that drive the tape, and they are on plastic wheels, and those plastic wheels are driven by a rubber idler tire that is on a clutch that goes back and forth and this way as well to do play, fast forward, and rewind. It is designed to slip. In other words, it is held at a certain tension against the reels, or the wheels, excuse me, so that, for example, when you get to the end of a tape and there's no more to pull, and this spindle stops turning, the idler tire continues to turn, but it doesn't force this reel to continue turning so that it breaks your tape. So at that point it will be slipping against this wheel, and then other mechanisms in the tape deck determine that the tape is no longer turning and it auto stops. So what's the big deal? Because it's rubber, and now 40-plus-year-old rubber, probably a little dry and stiff, not so supple anymore, and 40-plus-year-old plastic, when those things rub together or even come in contact like they do when the deck is playing, they're going to generate static electricity. And for some reason, Pioneer could not figure out how to electrically connect that system to the chassis, the nearest piece of the chassis being this thing, without a ridiculous spring. I guess I should have told you to begin with. See this orange wire? That's new. I just put that in this evening because there was a spring that went from the back of that spindle, which is here, to, well, actually that screw hole, and the screw is missing. The joys of quote-unquote serviced vintage hi-fi gear on eBay, right? I think I deserve a discount or a refund or something. At least let me leave updated updated feedback, right? But it's safe and sound over here. But what was happening was this wasn't here. So the static had no place to discharge. And what was happening was the static was building up as the mechanism was turning, as it does. And when it finally got enough to jump off someplace, it would jump off and it would make a nice big pop, which would get into the audio and it would show on the meters. And since I've been shooting this video and testing prior, I've run through that much of a brand new blank tape. I have not heard it pop once. I have not seen those meters move once. And I think that it's fixed. So why did I MacGyver this? Because literally the spring is missing. I held the deck over my head and I shook it. It hadn't fallen off and it was underneath the main circuit board or anything. Wasn't there. So it was missing to begin with, and that screw was missing anyway. So I have a feeling whoever quote-unquote serviced this, which judging by the dust and all the original capacitors, means that they probably just opened it up and carefully followed a YouTube tutorial to replace the belts and put the cover back on and sold it for twice what they bought it for. That spring and screw was probably missing to begin with when that seller acquired the deck, and they had no idea that it was missing. The reason it's a spring and not just a wire from terminal to terminal is because, like I said, this is the shaft that it's connected to. This idler tire assembly moves back and forth to touch both reels, but it also moves forward and backward because there are two different spots on this wheel that it touches, one for play, one for fast forward. Okay, so this is playing right now. I'm gonna stop it. Watch that shaft. See it move? And it pops toward the back of the deck for play. And it pops toward the front of the deck for stop. It stays in that position for fast forward and rewind. Pops toward the back of the deck for play. So they needed sort of a spring, or I guess that, I don't know if this sort of MacGyvered sort of contraption would have made it through production. But where this deck is, where it never moves and it's on a locked off camera shot, I think this will be fine. This solution will outlive the deck, I think. And my wife actually engineered this. I opened the deck and I told her, I have confirmed that the spring is missing and I need a consult on what is essentially now a craft project because I need because I basically need a spring created. And she said, well, give me a piece of wire. And she figured out the rest. That's wrapped around. There's a spring clip, or I think that's what you call that, a spring clip on there. So it's kind of wrapped tightly around there. And of course that's driven in between the screw and the washer there on the chassis. And again, I've been running this tape and I haven't heard it pop once. So the next thing to do is put it back in place in the studio and reshoot everything I've shot in the last month or so. But that's just the way it goes. I thought you'd be interested. That's all for now. Take care.